In the midst of revolution, a decision shapes the course of history. On March 3, 1918, Russia officially exits World War I. An alliance with Serbia pulls Russia into World War I in 1914. Things do not go well from the outset. Despite the fact that Germany is forced to divide its forces between the Western and Eastern fronts, Russia's military is pushed back. The Russians do find some success against Germany's allies, but this cannot overcome the disastrous defeats to the Germans. The army's struggles fuel growing discontent among the Russian people, especially the poverty-stricken workers and peasants. Hostility toward Tsar Nicholas II and his imperial regime grows. The February Revolution in March 1917 forces the Tsar to abdicate. Lenin and the Bolsheviks then seize power from the provisional government during the October Revolution in November. One of Lenin's first actions as leader is to end Russia's participation in the war. A formal ceasefire is declared in December, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk formalizes the peace in 1918. Coming up, we'll learn more about some of the consequences, both long-term and short-term, of Russia's World War I exit. Also, I'll answer an important question. Why do they call them the February and October revolutions if they happened in March and November? Don't forget to check out Today in History in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. There's a link in the description. Okay, so what are the consequences of Russia's exit from World War I? First of all, it helps push the U.S. into the war. It becomes apparent by early 1917 that Russia is in big trouble. It's hard to fight a war against the Central Powers while a revolution is taking place within your own borders. Americans see that Russia is likely to pull out, and even if Russia doesn't pull out, it's pretty clear that Russia will not be playing much of a role in the war going forward. They won't really be a factor. This means that Germany can move many of its forces from the Eastern Front to the Western Front, which could break the ongoing trench warfare stalemate. Even though the U.S. is technically neutral, Americans clearly want the Allies to win, and Russia's exit might make that much less likely. The Russian Revolution isn't the only thing, however, that pushes the U.S. into the war. There are other factors like the Zimmermann telegram and unrestricted submarine warfare, but the Russian Revolution definitely plays a role. Let's look at some of the consequences now of Russia's exit. Let's look first at a long-term consequence. So Russia gives up huge tracts of land in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. In the years between the wars, the Soviet Union regained some of those losses, like Ukraine and Belarus. Stalin, however, sees World War II as an opportunity to reacquire territory lost in World War I, places like the Baltic states and Poland, for example. Another long-term consequence of Russia's World War I exit is the current war with Ukraine. Russia gives up Ukraine in 1917, only to reacquire it between the wars. Then Russia loses Ukraine again after the end of the Cold War. Putin clearly sees Ukraine as historically Russian and is seeking to take it again, just like the Bolsheviks did after World War I, which, if you asked me, is total Bolshevik. So, why do they call them the February and October revolutions if they happened in March and November? Well, another of Lenin's early actions, once he comes to power, is to switch from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. This happens when Russia skips February 1st through 13th back in 1918. Yes, that means that if you went to bed in Moscow on January 31st, you would wake up the next morning on February 14th. This must have been an especially major challenge for Russian husbands and boyfriends when it comes to Valentine's Day shopping. The rest of Europe and its dominions had already made this switch. Catholic nations like Italy, France, Spain, and others make the switch way back in 1582 during the days of Pope Gregory XIII. And that is, of course, the Gregorian calendar's namesake. Britain and its colonies don't want to appear Catholic in any way, so they don't switch until 1752. So why did we need the Gregorian calendar in the first place? Well, simply put, the Julian calendar, which is named for Julius Caesar, calculated 1 year as 365.25 days. Thus, you would need a leap year once every 4 years. The easiest way to do this is to add a leap year in every year divisible by 4, okay, which is what we're used to. The problem is that astronomers later discover that the actual length of a year is closer to 365.2422 days. This means that the Julian calendar has about 3 extra leap days every 400 years. It may not seem like much, but this put 16th century Europe 10 days behind a true tropical calendar, necessitating this change. If we still used the Julian calendar today, we'd be 13 days behind the tropical calendar, and seasons would not begin around the 21st of March, June, December, or September and December. They would instead begin around the 8th of those months. And then 1100 years from now, they wouldn't be in those months at all. To account for this, the Gregorian calendar makes 3 of every 4 years ending in 00, makes them regular years, not leap years. This means that the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 were not leap years. It also means that 2100, 2200, and 2300 will not be leap years either. A 00 year must be divisible by 400 to be a leap year in the Gregorian calendar. So 1600, 2000, 2400, those are leap years. Well, if you like what you've seen here, which of course you have, because who doesn't want, to watch a lengthy rambling about calendars? I mean, what could be more entertaining, right? Anyway, if you like what you've seen, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And there are more videos available, including, since we talked about Valentine's Day, you can watch this video right here about how Valentine's Day came to be. That's from February 14th, in case you're wondering. And then there's another great Mr. Lewis video right here. Thanks.